Hello and welcome to the Night Watch Show, Mobile Edition. I will remove my mask, I promise. I just went through a checkpoint, and I am alone in the vehicle, so no need to wear a mask at this point. I want to talk to you today about starting a business, and also as we reflect upon the current state of affairs, and as we all know, we've been in crisis mode throughout our countries and communities, and one of the tragedies of all of this, there are so many businesses, family-run businesses, for example, small, what we'd call mom and pop shop type businesses, many of which do not make a lot of money, but what they do very well is they manage to pay their employees, take good care of their staff, provide an important service to their communities, whether it be food service, whether it be salon, barber services, all types of local businesses, movie theaters, for example. There are a lot of businesses throughout our communities that we have grown accustomed to and that we look forward to, and it's part of our way of life. However, many of those businesses really truly just barely make profit, and it's more about paying employees and making just enough for the owners to cover their life expenses and continue to provide their products and services to the community. And the fear I have is that a lot of those businesses that are on really shoestring, just week-to-week budgets may not be able to endure the consequences of this pandemic, which is just devastating economies globally. Some hopefully will be able to benefit from various stimulus programs in different parts of the world, and if so, they'll have a chance at making it through this challenging time. Others, however, may not have such options or may never receive such benefits even if they're on the table. And so a lot of those businesses unfortunately may close and we may lose them, which is a great loss to our communities throughout the world. What this does do, and an unanticipated, unexpected opportunity, is that a lot of businesses probably won't be around anymore, especially the ones that were barely making it before are going to have a really hard time, not just surviving this extended lockdown we're all experiencing, but emerging from it there is pent-up demand, and a lot of people are going to hit these businesses hard and be spending money, but possibly in slightly different ways. And I think for businesses to survive, they're going to need to, at least many of them, especially those that were barely making it before, will need to adapt and adjust to the new normal in a way that will allow their business to thrive and continue and not go broke. And so in any case, considering starting a business, I think this is the ideal time. It's the ideal time to contemplate what would be the ideal business aligned with your personal passions and experience. If you don't have experience but you have passion, you may want to look into a franchise opportunity where you're able to benefit from the experience of others who are industry experts and industry veterans and tap into their knowledge base and experience level if you don't have experience. But if you have the experience and the passion, it's a good time to think about what is that business, how does it work in the new normal, and how will you be able to carve out a niche that will be a hot niche at this time. So I really don't believe this is a time to say, let's wait and see what happens. I think this is a time to say, let's rally our thoughts, let's put together a plan, and let's get a business going quickly, because as things start to bounce back, there is going to be a huge surge of demand, but it will probably be highly focused in sectors and in ways that work within the new structure of things. So, for example, let's talk for a minute about restaurants. There's social distancing. Restaurant concepts are going to need to adapt a bit, because it's not just about government rules that say you need to have social distancing for a period of time and people can't sit too close together. It's not just that. It's that customers may not want to sit too close to someone that's coughing and sneezing at a table next to them. So a restaurant concept really probably should consider elements such as that. And I'm not a restaurateur by any means, but considering a model that will ensure that your customers feel comfortable dining at your facility whether it be pods, whether it be spacing. Now, the problem is in a lot of areas, rent is high, and the last thing you have is more space. In some markets, that may not be an issue. You may be able to just have a kind of a bigger floor plan. You may have enough space already to make social distancing work long term. But it seems as though takeout is going to be an important part of the concept. Having a way to make diners feel comfortable in their new environments is also quite important. If you have a gym, everybody that's into fitness is always going to be into fitness. Working out from home can work for some, but for many, they're going to go to fitness centers. They're going to go to their local gym. They're not going to be able to just sit at home and work out. Some can do it, some temporarily, few can do it forever. Ultimately, those of us into fitness will be back at gyms. Even if there are some risks involved, we would feel that the benefits of strengthening your immune system through fitness would outweigh the risk of exposure to germs while in the gyms. But at the same time, fitness center and gym owners and operators will definitely need to consider what will put their customer base at ease and give them a competitive edge in having customers not feel that they're exposed to undue levels of risk of contagion in their facility. Of course, that involves having customers see frequent cleaning, proper spacing of equipment, certain zones, for example. All of this has to be figured out. So if you have a current business, now is the time to consider, and I'm sure you are, how to adapt, not just during the transition back to normal, because we don't know when this normal will happen, or is the new normal going to be the normal for a very long time. I would highly recommend those of you with businesses consider a way to adapt, to assume that this will be a long-term adjustment and that things will continue as they are for quite some time. Maybe not based on government regulations, but based on consumer expectations. And so because of that, it's important to ensure that your financial model of your business can sustain itself given people's expectations of new levels of social distancing, not wanting to lift weights next to someone else that's coughing on you, for example. So in the past, people would kind of accept that, and maybe worst case, you catch a cold. Now we're realizing it could be a lot worse than that. And even when there's a vaccine for coronavirus, the problem is we're all going to remember this. We're all going to remember how bad this is, how many people have died, how many people have been infected, and how much this devastated our world. And because of that, I believe that people are going to be so conscious of viruses and bacteria and germs to a whole new level than ever before. Even long after government regulations may fade, consumer expectations probably will not. And this is not only for direct customers, but even people, for example, over concerned for their children, dropping their child off at a ballet or karate class and picking them up later. They might be quite concerned about their child contracting viruses there. So just considering all of this, you could look at a McDonald's and the play area where all the kids are crawling around and playing and having a great time. How many parents are going to feel comfortable with that type of approach? So really, entrepreneurs must find new ways to adapt their businesses, I believe, to consumer expectations, which are a lot different than they were before the pandemic. Now, if you're considering starting a new business, I think there's so much opportunity in really accepting this new normal as being a long-term, continuous type of situation, and finding a niche, something that you're experienced in and passionate about that fits within this new normal in such a way that you're able to complement it and thrive based on it. And that would be where I would strongly suggest considering going into a business model now. There are lots of ideas, and I'm not really here to provide you specific business ideas, but it's important to consider your passion, what you're into, what you're going to want to spend a lot of your time doing, because businesses, it's great to be your own boss, but it's also important that you enjoy what you're doing, because you'll be working probably more than you ever have before if you've been used to working and now you're going to start a business. I wouldn't consider it being less work. It's probably more, but if you love it, that's great. So it's important it's something you enjoy, something consumers can feel comfortable with at this point in time. For the food and beverage business, I would really be personally very in favor of those that embrace kind of a takeout, drive up and grab and drive off type of model versus a dine-in option. If it's a dine-in option, some new approach to social isolation that makes it fun rather than kind of creepy and science fiction-ish. Eating in a pod-like environment could be a bit interesting, I suppose. There are ways to do that. There's also ways to consider just really focusing on more of a takeout type model, which I think you can do quite well with right now. Drive-up model, for example, curbside assistant food delivered right to the car type of model. If you're looking at fitness, embracing the type of model that allows people to be spaced adequately apart, and that's very hard to do in a weightlifting gym full of weights, so that takes quite a bit of creativity, and it seems to focus a little more on kind of a class-based model where you're able to have people working out in groups that are a bit more spread out and really manage that in such a way that people aren't too close together, for example. So there's a lot of thought you can put into the type of business that would make sense. Just as an example, going into this pandemic, some of you may have thought of this, and I wish I was one of those people, but I think most of us missed the boat on this. But as this epidemic was very clearly becoming a pandemic and a serious issue, those of us that have retirement accounts or 401ks or any types of investments, why didn't we sell everything and put it all into companies like Amazon and Netflix and Nintendo, everything that embraces the stay-at-home demand that, while global stock markets have crashed, Amazon and Netflix, for example, video game company stocks have just been skyrocketing, which obviously they would be, because that's what everybody's doing, is buying and having things delivered to their homes and streaming Netflix and playing video games and all the things we do at home. So that sure would have been a good way to make a lot of profit. Even pharmaceutical companies, for example. So instead of that, I think we just kind of took a wait and see approach to all of this, and everything just kind of sank. But I'm sure there were some brilliant investors out there. Warren Buffett, unfortunately, didn't seem to call that. Instead of buying airlines, he probably should have bought Netflix, probably should have bought Amazon, probably should have bought Nintendo. Airlines certainly hit him pretty hard. So in thinking about the type of business you want to start, it's important to consider people are now quite germophobic and probably will continue to be that way, maybe for a generation or more. So I would seriously incorporate that into your business plan. Businesses that sanitize, for example, businesses that offer some type of a sanitation service, sanitizing cars, sanitizing homes. And I'm really, again, not trying to suggest certain business models, but you can really piece this together and try to just think a little bit ahead into what's on people's minds for themselves, for their families, for their parents, for their children, and what type of businesses will thrive and almost be guaranteed to thrive in this case. I would say that if I were to open a business right now that involved antiviral sanitation services, where basically we would send a truck to your house to sanitize your home completely, which you may want to do after get-togethers and parties, and not only homes but offices, for example, going into various businesses on a weekly or a daily basis and completely sanitizing them with antiviral agents, etc., wiping things down. So going beyond the normal level of kind of sanitization, which was wiping things down, but really kind of a deeper approach to that, could just be a huge market right now. And those of you that work, freelancers, for example, on networks such as Amazon, where you're able to service the community and offer your services for sale through Amazon and in different countries. I know there are probably some different providers as well, but that would be something to gain some expertise in and even some certifications in. Seems like a huge opportunity, but there are many others. Food and beverage is going nowhere. Fitness is going nowhere. What I mean is they're not going away. They're going somewhere, meaning they'll keep growing. They're not going away, so they're here to stay. The question is, which types of models will be most successful and which will not? And that is where you should really put your thought, whether it's adapting your current business or starting a new business. I would highly suggest that those of you with passion but without the experience in running your own business to consider a franchise model. And if you're going to do that, I'd recommend looking at their reviews, going online, doing research. Don't just talk to the franchise, but go on to, for example, entrepreneur.com is a great magazine and an online website as well, where you can research different franchise brands and kind of go with those that are rated the best. Would be a good starting point, I would say, that you have a passion for, and that have reasonable fees and reasonable terms, because then you're gaining a lot of expertise. You've got a whole team helping you adapt to the new normal, and you've also got all kinds of processes and proven systems and even branding. So that's one way to go. The other way is do it yourself, and if you do it yourself, just make sure that you've got the experience and also the passion for it. So that's it for today. Just wanted to talk about business. I understand that it might be appealing to wait and see, but I can tell you right now, in my very firm opinion, is an ideal time to rent a location. If you wanted to go rent a business right now, an actual location, I should say, this would be ideal. A lot of landlords, property management firms right now are definitely struggling. Many haven't had rent payments in a long time. Many tenants will not be continuing their businesses. I'd expect a lot of vacant spaces, abandoned spaces, businesses going out of business, and I think it's probably a renter's market on a commercial level, meaning that if you're looking for a brick and mortar business, one that has an actual location, this would be a great time to go and secure a location for your business. Waiting 4 or 5 months until everything's kind of back and thriving and everybody's had all their great ideas and scooped up all the spaces, the rent starts jumping again. I think right now you can get a great deal on rent, and also even if you're looking at a franchise, you probably can negotiate pretty good terms right now. I think everybody's going to be wheeling and dealing to get the economy pushed forward. So I would say now is the time to strike, buy low, sell high. That goes for starting a business right now. I believe you can get set up at a much cheaper entry point than you could have prior to the pandemic, and a much cheaper entry point than you can probably 6 months from now. So go, go, go. Thank you for joining this episode of the Night Watch Show.